All right, so for anyone who might not know, why don't you just introduce yourself with your name, your tag, and your main or mains, you
Sure.
know.
My name is Malachi Allen. My tag is Mchi. My main is currently Falco, but I used to play Fox, and probably I spent the majority of my time playing competitive Melee playing Fox.
hmm So I guess I'll start with how I do with everyone. So like, why don't you tell us like how you got your tag and your main and like any history behind like them, like where you started, where you are now, etc.
Sure. So for tag, my friend in middle school, my nickname used to be Malachi because that's how teachers would butcher my name,
hmm
Malachi to Malachi. And so one of my friends just started calling me Mchi, and then it kind of stuck. So then I used it for all my screen names. It's my league screen name. My screen name in most games that I play, as long as it's available. And then that also went to being my tag in Super Smash Bros. Melee. I like that it's 4 characters as well, so it felt like a pretty no-brainer.
hmm
As for my main, I mained a bunch of different characters at different times. I started by maining Sheik because I watched the Smash documentary in 2014 and I thought Korean DJ was really cool.
hmm
And then when I came to SB, Jake Peskin was better than me in every way with Sheik, so I decided, we're going to play Marth. And then Colin Mendoza was better than me at Marth, so I was like, okay, well, I don't want to play Marth either. So then I started playing Peach, I think, next. And she was fine, but I don't know, it didn't really stick. And then I started playing Ice Climbers because cool kid Clayton told me that that's the easiest way to get free wins in the game way back in 2014.
hmm
And I was whooping Jake with Ice Climbers, and he thought it was so cool that I was wobbling. And then after 5 minutes, he's like, okay, this is dumb stuff. And I didn't feel good, I don't know, wobbling. So I stopped playing Ice Climbers, and then I just picked up Fox, and I was like, if I play Fox, then I can't have any excuses. I'm playing the best character in the game.
hmm
Like, at the time, I had no losing matchups, right? Things have changed. But at the time, I had no losing matchups. And so, yeah, that's when I started playing Fox, and then I just grinded out Fox a bunch, and then it stuck.
hmm So how all these initial changes from like character to character, when was like this explosive period of like Sheik, Marth, Peach, Ice Climbers, like how like give me like maybe give people an idea of like how that time frame was like before you landed on Fox, like all this switching.
Um, it was within like, let's see, I got to college fall, and then I kind of didn't play melee much of fall, and then I came in winter, and then I think I had decided on Fox as my main by spring, so it was like 6 months total
Yeah.
of playing all those different characters.
hmm So in terms of your like getting into melee, you mentioned like the documentary and stuff. Like, can you maybe go into a little more detail on like how you got into the game as a whole, and then splintering off of that, how you got into the game at Santa Barbara, if those are different?
So getting into the game was pretty straightforward. I didn't know that there was such thing as competitive Smash. I used to wish that competitive Smash was a thing when I was like in middle school and high school. Little did I know it actually existed. I wasn't one to look through random forums on the internet, so I never looked it up. But I played Brawl and I played Lucas, and I was always like, I want to play competitively. But then I didn't know that it was actually a thing, and so I saw the documentary probably on YouTube or something. Or no, I think somebody mentioned it in a YouTube video of like, I think Jibe might have mentioned it in a video of like best documentaries this year, video
hmm
game related documentaries. And I watched it with my friend, and we were like, that was really cool. And then I started learning to wave dash, and then I went to my first tournament, which is actually really funny. Shroomed and Pew Pew were at my first tournament at Santa Cruz. I went to a local in Santa
hmm
Cruz. And my favorite story there is PPU told me that Nair on Marth was bad, and then now I feel like Nair is, it's a lot more complex than Nair is bad, right? But he would tell me that Nair was bad, and then I should stop doing it, and I just think it's funny
hmm
because I'm not sure I agree with that sentiment.
Times
Looking
change.
back on it,
Times change.
yeah, but that was my first tournament experience, and then when I got to college, I just looked up, oh, right, in college I was on the first floor San Miguel, and Jake Peskin was also there, and so was Cam Swanson, and so we all were interested in Smash, and we'd play against each other, and I think Jake was the one who found the, Smash scene on Facebook or something, and was like, oh, we should all go one week, and so we went, and then I liked it, I enjoyed my first week there, but then I, had all this relationship stuff, and then I stopped really focusing on it. And then in winter, I was like, okay, I actually really want to get good at this game.
hmm
And I started going regularly.
All right. So you mentioned your first tournament was a Santa Cruz local.
Yes.
What was your first Santa Barbara tournament, if you remember? Or
Mm,
like, if you don't remember exactly, then like, like
it
if you
was
have any
just a
memories,
weekly. It
just
was
a
some
weekly.
weekly. Yeah, just some random weekly. Nothing too special. I went 0-2.
Do
I
you
know
remember
that.
where it was or anyone who
Oh,
played there?
I mean, it was in the original. Oh
Harold
gosh, what
Frank.
was the name of the building? Yeah, I was in the original Harold Frank Hall. Did I play anyone interesting? I mean, I when I went there, I played against like in friendlies. I played against like Cool Kid and Alan Pena and stuff. But Cool Kid double force or double JV5 stalked me.
Mm-hmm.
My first week there, like my first or second week there. I didn't play against anyone. I just got absolutely whooped by everyone I touched. It was not close, no matter who I played against.
Mm-hmm. Sounds that'll definitely happen. What made you go from Fox to Falco over time?
Interesting. It's a bit of a timeline shift. I think Falco suits my playstyle better.
Mm-hmm.
I like more read space, which is definitely what Falco needs to do. Like he plays a lot of rock paper scissors, whereas like Fox is very much like execution. Like he has a lot of very optimal combos where it's like if you get a certain opening in a certain way, like there is like a very strong flow chart. I feel like the common sentiment for a long time was that that was actually what Falco did, but then times changed, like you said. Like
Mm-hmm.
Falco's combos became way more like people realized that you could DI Falco's combos so optimally, and it made it so that mix-ups were really important in your combo game.
Mm-hmm.
With Fox, you can just link anything, right? And so after a long time, I also felt like I can play fast, but I just naturally don't. And it's so much more important to play fast as Fox than it is as Falco that I was
Mm-hmm.
just like totally shooting myself in the foot by continuing to play Fox when I didn't want to like really, really push the limits of my, I guess, APM. And I actually felt that like there were times in tournament where I would force myself to increase my APM and I would do so much better. But it was just so much active thinking for me, and it I guess hurt my hands, right? Like it hurts most people's hands to push their APM so high, and so
Mm-hmm.
I just was like, I'll just play Falco, and I don't know, Falco's cooler.
Okay.
It's kind of all that. I also think Falco has more interesting matchups, and I think one of my least. I don't know. I used to really like Fox Marth back in the day because I played it so much. And then Marth's got a lot better at the matchup, and then Fox Marth became an agonizing matchup, and I actually think Falco might win that matchup. So I don't mind playing it when I play Falco because I think Falco Marth is actually like 50-50, right? Or maybe like 55 Marth, 45 Falco, which is like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another huge reason because people are playing so much more Marth than they used to.
Right. What do you think? So I guess like in terms of matchups, like while we're on that topic, like what have historically like been some of your favorite and least favorite matchups, character and player matchups?
Did you say favorite and least favorite, or did you just say
favorite and least.
Well, least favorite
If you have them.
Fox Ditto is easy. I've always been so bad at Fox Dittos. It's funny because my best win of all time was a Fox Ditto against CDK, but I absolutely despise Fox Dittos, and I just hate playing against Fox in most situations. That character's bullshit. Let's see. Favorite matchups. I really liked Fox Sheik. That's one I was just classically really good at because I played against Jake Peskin so much, and a lot of my good wins. I took a game off of Swedish Delight in tournament. I have some pretty close sets against players like Spark and Captain Face Roll from way back when. I was classically really good at that matchup, and I enjoyed playing it. I think it's really Fox favored, even with Sheik's good chain grabbing. Even if they can reaction tech chase, I still think it's Fox favored. And then I like Falco Marth a lot. Currently, that's my favorite matchup to play, probably. Falco Sheik is not as fun because I think having played so much Fox Sheik, it feels bad to play a matchup against Sheik where like she's like even or maybe even favored, or even if she's not favored, it's like so close. It feels so much worse when you're like, wow, the Sheik character is actually pretty good when you play Falco. Whereas when you play Fox, you're just like, this character's so free, like you can win no matter what you do. And going between those two is really, it feels bad. So I don't like Falco Sheik that much, but Fox Sheik is really fun. Fox Puff I've also been really good at because I play pretty slow and I am not antsy. So I have a lot of good sets against Puff players as well.
So, like, any particular players that you think you had your favorite or least favorite matchups against as well?
Favorite and least favorite matchups. Do you mean like specifically tournament sets, or just every time I played against them?
Tournament sets in this case.
Well, my favorite tournament set is probably when my favorite tournament of all time is when I 3-0'd Tommy into taking a set off of Allen, and I was the only player to take a set off of Allen that whole quarter. That felt really good. But that was a good tournament. I felt so good because I was up 2-0 against Tommy, and then game 3 was super close. And I know that if he had won that game, he would have taken the whole set. He would have reverse sweep me 100%. You could just feel the momentum, and he felt it too. I remember after the set, he told me, he was like, dude, I would have won that set if I had won that game. And I'm like, I know, I'm happy I closed it out as a 3-0. But then that was probably my favorite tournament, like back to back. Yeah, I'd say that. That's I don't think that there's much of a contest for that as like my favorite tournament. Oh, player, I forgot. I love playing against Umarth. I hold an insanely positive record against that guy. We have had a lot of tournament sets, and for some reason he would always smash me in friendlies, and then in tournament it would always be I'd slightly edge him out. Game 5. So I think, I don't know if you knew this, but we went to Santa Maria one time because that's the closest place between SLO and Santa Barbara, and we played a 15 games. He won the winner set, best of 5, game 5, and then I took 2 5-game sets in reverse, and the last game of the entire series was on FD, and I was down 2 stocks to 1, and I still was able to bring it back. That's also one of my favorite tournament sets for sure. Or when I just defended UCSB's Pride against Umarth, because we had taken every slow cap of the first like 6 or 7 slow caps, and then he was on track to win it, and then I also reverse 10 games set him in that.
I remember the slow curse of where they can't win their own tournament there.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah,
I don't know how it is now.
Yeah. Well, now, you know, the IBDW could be winning it. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So would you say that I guess I'll brush on this while it's more relevant stuff. Like, so in terms of tournaments, like you kind of touched on some of your favorite tournaments. Do you have any least favorite tournaments?
Oh, for sure. I have 2 that come to mind. One was a really frustrating tournament where for some reason they didn't seed Trikelman. I forget. It was at
Was it an SSS?
Fullerton? Oh, okay. No. It was at Fullerton. They would have seeded Trikelman.
Yeah, I was going to say, but the way you said it, I was just like, oh, like they super should have, but didn't.
Yeah. Anyway, it's frustrating because I like brought up the fact that he was the 3rd seed in my pool, and I was like, this guy's better than me, right? Like this, and then he ended up, I think, getting 5th at the tournament, and it was like top 8 get out of pools. So the other 2, like it was like Captain Face for him, and I was seeded top 8 at one point. So it was 3 seeded top 8 players, and I barely lost a set to Captain Face Roll. It was like 2-1 last stock, and I was really sad. And then I played Trikelman. I'm really bad at Fox Dittos. That's an easy like, oh, he didn't deserve it. But no, he's a really good player. So not only was I bad at Fox Dittos, but he's also very good. And he totally whooped me. And then I didn't get out. And then they're like, wow, what an upset. And then he ended up getting top 5. And they're like, I think he beat Koopa Troop at that event, possibly. And they're like, wow, Trikelman did so insane. I'm like, dude, I could have told you that. I told you to seed him. Like, yeah, that was a frustrating one. Both a favorite and least favorite. There's a SoCal Arcadian where I ended up playing Tommy and losers, and it was a very close set. And I think if I had won that, I would have had a good chance to win the whole Arcadian, because next up would have been against Nico, the Puff player, and I did pretty well against him. It wasn't like, it wouldn't have been one-sided or anything, but I'm good at that matchup, and we're similar skill level at the time. I think I could have easily taken it, but I knew, like, after I won, I was like, Tommy is literally incapable of beating Jigglypuff. Like, I've seen him play against a bunch of Jigglypuffs, and he really struggles with that matchup. So he ended up losing, and it felt really bad, because I was like, if I could have upset my demon there to be able to then like go and take a tournament, it would have been a really memorable experience. So it feels like a lost opportunity. And then there was another tournament where it was I tweeted something super depressing afterwards. I lost to a player named Daddy, and it was just an Irvine local, I think. And then Daddy afterwards like made fun of me for making the sad tweet, and I was like, whatever, dude. It felt really bad to get wobbled. I got booty blasted from wobbling.
Yeah,
definitely. And I lost to Daddy also at a Genesis, I believe, and that was also really depressing for me. Both of those. And it was after
talking about that.
I barely lost to Asla in winners. It was 2-1 last stock, and he killed me like 110% on Pokemon Stadium, and he was at like 120 or something. It was a banger set, and it was really sad that to then go into losers and lose to Daddy. It felt really bad. Those are probably my 2.
To go into losers and get wobbled.
Yeah, after such a close set against somebody who was like pretty good, right? Like he wasn't who he is at the time. Like now, Azel is like an insane player, but at the time he was kind of on the come up, and I'd say we were like pretty similar skill level. If anything, like I might have been seeded slightly higher than him.
Mhm.
I don't actually remember at the time, but it was definitely a bummer for me. I didn't enjoy losing that set.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it was a fun set. Don't get me wrong. It was really, I don't know, like those kinds of sets are really sad because you feel sad afterwards, but like they're really fun, right? Like it was last hit, last stock game 3. Like it felt good to play. Like
Yeah.
Fox Falcon was one of my favorite matchups. Like from Fox's side, it feels super good. So
Mhm.
it just sucked to lose that. Like losing really close sets against players who are of your skill level or maybe slightly higher to then lose in losers feels really, really bad. It's similar with the other tournament that I mentioned where like I almost beat Captain Face Roll and then I went into losers and lost. But like there's another tournament in SSS where I was up 2 stocks to 1 against Psycho Midget. He was like 60% and he got an up the rest on me to very to close out the set, and then I lost to some random like PN Fox player. It felt really bad because I was so close to making such a huge upset and feeling like it would have been like so big and everyone would have been like, oh wow, that was really impressive. To then like you lose, it feels bad.
Yeah.
Those are usually my least favorite tournament memories.
Mhm. So on the topic of like tournaments and stuff, for you personally, like in terms of like like how it affects you personally and what you think of it more broadly, how would you say, like how would you describe the importance of like skills? I guess in Melee they might be considered like soft skills of like handling tournament nerves and tournament pressure and like having like sort of bracket stamina and like that kind of stuff.
I think that stuff's a lot. So the other game I played, like in your tournaments, is Osu, right? In comparison, I think that Melee is definitely like tournament nerves are less a big deal than an Osu. Like I would say, almost certainly. The thing is, like you have to overcome tournament nerves in Melee. Like tournaments are like the most important style of play, right?
Right.
So like you constantly have to be dealing with them, and there's something that it's really easy to improve at. I mean, obviously you're never going to play your best in every set. You're rarely going to play your best in tournament, but like it's the same with everyone else. And nobody can just like completely ignore their tournament nerves to the point where they're overperforming super, super hard, I think, in Melee, whereas that can happen in like Osu from my experience with it. Like somebody can just be so in the zone that they forget they're in tournament and they're just obliterating somebody else who's dealing with really bad nerves. In Melee, everyone's forced to deal with their nerves all the time. And so it's definitely, I mean, it's an important skill, but it's one that like everybody has to confront very frequently all the time.
Okay. And that's a good take on that. So taking a step away from tournaments and like kind of touching on something you mentioned earlier. So in terms of playing against people outside of tournaments, like what to you are like qualities that you look for in people that like you find fun or fulfilling or whatever to play with outside of tournaments? Specifically, if you could touch on like personality type stuff and like the actual gameplay as well. Yeah, go for that.
Yeah. I'll start with personality because that one's easier. I like when people talk while they're playing. So I like playing against Jake. I like playing against Benjamin Tolan as well, Luigi Kid, because it's always, we just have such a good time just like talking while we play and making jokes and stuff like that. I know some people get really serious and they just like to, zone in on what they're doing and don't want to talk or anything. But I think, I don't know. It's not that I don't like playing against those types of people. It's just that I'll almost always inherently like playing against somebody who is a little chatty. I mean, as long as it's like they're not, I guess like there's a limit as well, like what they're talking about. I guess like as long as they're keeping it like just jokes or like we're just having a good time, lighthearted, exactly. And then so I like playing against players like that. And then after that, for actual in game, I really like playing against people who are like, I guess like it feels really nice to get in the state where you're thinking and your opponent is thinking and you're constantly like changing your gameplay. It's very rare actually, surprisingly, to play these kinds of players. But every time I do, and it also depends on the state, right? Because sometimes you're both the kinds of players who can play like that, but in the moment you're not, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You're just kind of autopiloting. But when you can get in those sessions where both players are like really thinking, it's a lot of fun. I also like when both players feel comfortable complimenting each other when they do good stuff. Like you're like, wow, that was a really good recovery, or that was a really good edge guard, like things like that. Definitely add to how fun it is to play against somebody. Say a player that I think is surprising. Actually, I have a lot of fun playing against is like Ernesto. Because Ernesto definitely is one to compliment, one to chat during the set, and then also he, depending on what mood you get him in, he can actually be thinking really hard and like giving you a pretty good time, actually like alternating play styles.
Right. I guess on the flip side, is there anything that you particularly like dislike when it comes to those things?
I think the only thing is when I can tell somebody's getting upset and
Mm-hmm.
and I can tell that they're trying to hide it.
Mm,
That's probably
okay.
when like I can tell that they're trying to calm themselves down because yeah, that's probably the situation where it's not that even like it's hard because it's not like their fault, right? Some people just get upset playing, and I don't really blame or fault anyone for that. But definitely there are some people who I don't have as much fun playing against because they get actually upset, or they like throw controllers. I've played against people who throw controllers against me. That's not fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's a very famous clip of someone throwing a controller against you in tournament.
Yes.
Um, so in terms of like the thinking and stuff, like kind of touching back on that, how would you describe like the sort of mental aspect of Melee, like in terms of like the thinking and like the sort of intangible uh things that go into playing the game versus like the mechanical like execution like physical aspect? Like how would you kind of describe each of those? Like I guess you can describe it like broadly, but also like relative to yourself, like how you see it for your like how you see the game through those lenses.
Hmm. When it comes to technical, there's a awesome player named Justin Choi, JC, who I played against a lot when I was becoming better at the game, and he described it in a way I really like, which is like technical skills like math. And so you think of each component as like their own component, and then you can combine them together. But if you're able to distill them each to their individual qualities, you can like combine them together really, really easily. So an example is like,
Mhm.
learning to wave shine. It's like, well, like, or maybe not learning to wave shine. Maybe like an example might be like wave shine, turn around, grab ledge. It's like, okay, well, I learned how to wave dash, and then I learned how to wave shine. Like those, like shining is one skill, wave dashing is one skill. You combine them, you make them wave shining, and then you learn how to turn around out of shine, and then you go, okay, well, if somebody just told me to do this skill, I would just combine those three things together,
Mhm.
right? You just like do the first skill I know, and then do the second and the third skill. Because if you know how they work, then like I feel like it's a lot easier to actually execute them.
Mhm.
So that's how I think about tech skill. And then in game, I have a very straightforward mindset, which is you're either playing aggressive, defensive, or campy. Those are like the three styles of play, I should say. And I usually think that they cyclically kind of beat each other. It's more nuanced than that, but whenever I'm just like having trouble, I'll fall back on that. And it's like, okay, well, aggressive loses to defensive, and then aggressive loses to defensive, and then defensive loses to campy, and then campy loses to aggressive, right?
Mhm.
If you're standing in place and somebody runs at you and you're not putting up any defensive walls, then you're going to lose. And then in contrast, if you are putting up a defensive wall and you run at somebody, you're going to lose because your move is going to come up after theirs, right? They're putting out a hurt box in front of you. And then the third option is if you're camping and somebody's putting up a wall, you don't care because you're just standing in place, right?
Mhm.
Their wall doesn't do anything to you. They're not actually taking any space. So I'd say those are like the three styles of play. And aggressive isn't as straightforward as just like, oh, this fox is staring at me, right? If Marth
Right.
can aggressively have a chance to take space, right? Walking in and taking space is an aggressive play,
Mhm.
especially if you're not putting out any hitboxes.
Mhm.
So that's usually how I think of the neutral game. And then once you get into like players do fun things in terms of like how they slowly mix up the way that they're playing and they do different things at different positions and
Timings
um,
and like different
yeah.
moves. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The whole
But
they have different bags of tricks.
the thing is, the neutral game is so small and so little of the game actually takes place in neutral state that like I feel like there's a little bit of an overemphasis on it. It's like
Okay.
if I'm in the corner and somebody else isn't in the corner, that's not a neutral state, right? Like because of how melee works. And
You're
so
talking about so like advantaged and disadvantaged positions are like not are like separate from neutral.
exactly, you have
Okay.
to play super differently in those positions.
Okay.
And I have my own flow charts for how those work as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I guess like since from there it's like how would you describe like your own play style like relative to those concepts?
Everyone's always called me super campy, which I've always thought was really weird because I definitely do. I mean, you can literally look at my clips. Like, I definitely do run at people a decent amount. I'd say I vary it like pretty regularly. I remember when I was taking lessons from some like melee players, some better melee players. I remember they said like I was like, oh, everyone calls me campy. What do you think? Like, because genuinely, like if I'm campy and don't want to call something what it's not, and they're like, I don't know. I feel like you just play normally. And I'm like, okay. Like I don't feel like I'm particularly campy. I describe my playstyle as I like to My favorite thing to do is to make people think I'm going to camp them and force them to run in really haphazardly and then fight them. So like an example is I really like fox lasers. Like when I played fox, I would do fox laser into running nair immediately, because the second people see laser, they'd run at me and then they would be in dash and I would get a free nair on them. Right. That was one of my favorite things to do. It's like baiting people into thinking that I'm going to camp them and then like, fighting them. Like that's probably my favorite thing to do.
Okay.
And I know like everyone would always say like, oh, you're lasering, that's camping, and I'm like, well, like if I'm lasering to bait something out from you and you fall for it, like I don't see how that's really campy, right? Like especially if afterwards I'm doing a nair, like you could punish my nair. And like I played against Alan a lot, and that's exactly what would happen is he would like, I'd laser and then I'd go to nair and he would just know that I was going to do that, and then he would put up a defensive wall, and I'm like, okay, well, was that really camping of me? I don't think so.
Right. Do you think that so how would you say like for you, I guess, if it did, like your play style changed like over time, like, or do you think it always was kind of like a similar core and just kind of got more refined?
It's hard because I think when people are really bad, they don't actually have a play style. I think people think they have a play style, but I think until I was like, I don't know, maybe like a top 10 Santa Barbara player, I didn't even have a play style. It was just I was bad. I'd say my play Clayton Cool Kid super influenced my play style because he sort of would say like, it's cool to be, mentally resilient and like be thinking about what you're doing and like try to evolve to your opponent. And so that influenced my playstyle a bit. But aside from that, I don't think my playstyle has changed too much in the last few years. It's been mostly the same.
Okay. So coming back to like SB and some of the since like you're bringing up a lot of player names, like would you say over the years of playing you had any rivalries?
Yes, definitely. I'd say I probably had 2 rivalries. One of my rivalries was with Tommy Tan, of course. I'd say that's the most obvious one. And then the other one is with Jake Peskin. But that one feels like less of a rivalry. Just I would say Tommy Tan's definitely, Doomy's the biggest rivalry I've had. With Jake, it wasn't really fair because when he was better than me, he'd smash me every time. And then after I took a certain set, I didn't lose the set after that, right? So it's like he was either in the phase when he was smashing me literally every set, and then it turned into the phase when like I was winning every set, right? Which isn't to be disrespectful to Jake. He's a good player, and I'm sure nowadays he could, make it really close and probably beat me in a good amount of sets. But at the time, during the time I was playing most of my, Melee career, it was definitely it was hard to say it was a rivalry just because of that aspect.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you feel like how do you feel that like rivalries like affected, like was that like a motivation for you to like improve and stuff, or like how did that kind of affect like your approach to like playing the game, I
For
guess?
sure. Yeah, it was a motivator to improve. I wanted to beat the people who were slightly better than me. And in that, I had a bunch of little rivalries, right? Like for a while, I had a rivalry with Brandon, and then for a while, I had a rivalry with Jeff, and for a while, I had a rivalry with Jason. Like all of like it was little rivalries until eventually I was, I'd say, like top 3. And then once I was top 3, it was just me and Tommy pretty much. And then after Tommy, it was Alan, and nobody really was able to take sets off Alan, so there was no rivalry between him and like anybody.
So this is something I haven't directly asked people yet, but I think that it's a good question to ask you, which is what is your sort of philosophy or policy on like what makes you want to attend a tournament? Like what makes you make the decision, I want to enter a tournament?
That there are a good number of people better than me that I could possibly beat. Usually, at least at the time, and part of the reason I stopped attending tournaments was that I was considered the best player in SB Melee, and then it feels bad to go to, like, people are like, oh, your consolation $60, but it feels like if you lose, then people will be talking about it, and there's all this, discussion. Are you even still good? Like, what the heck is happening? All that stuff. Like, for me, I like to go to tournaments when I know there are people better than me there that I could possibly upset, right? And so that's why I like going to a lot of out-of-region tournaments and stuff like that. Yeah, pretty much just that.
You want to overcome people, not just like defend the throne.
Well, that's how it was at the time. Now things are different, right? Because I don't play competitively as much. Nowadays, I just want to be able to hang out with my friends, right? So the main focus for me would be, is there a place nearby where we can all get drinks and like, are a bunch of my friends going that I can hang out with?
Right. Do you think that, so I think that it's kind of clear by that, but how would you say over time, I guess, like, your attachment to competitive Melee was predicated on the game itself versus like the community around it, sort of local or beyond.
I think it was definitely more of an attachment to the community, but it's also hard because a lot of the local community, I felt like the SoCal local community was definitely a small bit toxic. I don't know if it still is, but like I don't know. I definitely felt like there was a lot of it wasn't just like one sided. There was a lot of back and forth like ego and stuff like that thrown around that made I don't know. It's like it's hard to say because if I say the community, then it makes it seem like the community is the part of the game I liked, but it's like the community was just a part of the game that like kept me playing and like kept me engaged, right? Without other people, I wouldn't really have cared too much.
Give me 1 second while I turn on the light in my room because it's a little dark in here.
Sure.
1 sec.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So, kind of reeling it back into the local scene a bit, what would you say is your was your initial impression versus like your final impression of like Santa Barbara, like as a local Melee region?
My initial impression was, wow, these guys are all super good, and this is insane, and everyone is so cool. And then my final impression was definitely that Santa Barbara was getting a lot weaker from a skill perspective, but it was also a lot chiller, and I liked the people there more, for sure. Like, the community was a lot, I don't know, even now, like, most of the community members I like more than, I don't want to say more, but like, when I first joined, and for the first few years, it was definitely a lot more competitive, but that wasn't necessarily a good thing, right? There was also some annoyances that came with everybody being, and I mean, I was a huge proponent of the competitiveness, right? But even still, I can't say that I was the sole reason for that, knowing that in fourth year, when I was even attending, it's not like I made it the same as it was in my first, second, or third year.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, like, it's easy to, like, I feel like I've heard before that like the reason why things were the way they were in second and third year, which I would say was like when there was the most like hostility might be the right word. There's a lot. It was pretty clicky and stuff like that. A lot of people said it was my fault, which I'm sure that I played a big part in it, just because I wanted to get good and I wanted the people around me to get good, and that attitude is infectious positively and negatively, right? It makes people want to beat me for positive and negative reasons. And I know I got a lot of blame for that. But then in fourth year, when I was attending during my last quarter, it didn't feel like it was like that at all, right? And so it's hard to say that I was solely to blame for that. So that would be my impression sort of as time went on. When I was first year, I was just a complete noob, right? So I didn't have like any effect on the scene. I just thought all these guys were so cool and good, and like they were all really awesome people. And I wish I could have gotten another year with that whole group.
Right. Or like the rest of that year, since I think you said you didn't really pick it up until like spring. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you say then, out of all those years, was there like it doesn't have to be like a whole year. It could have been like just even like a month that was particularly memorable. But was there to you like a golden age of like SB Melee? Or not really?
I think the best SB Melee ever was my first year of college. But I wouldn't call that the golden age either. For me, the golden age, the time that I enjoyed the most, was definitely Alan, myself, and Tommy, junior year. When it was like we were the three people who were definitely, and Jake was there too. I don't want to ignore Jake either. Jake was also super good at that time, so I'd say it was probably S4. Rapid Rage was there too. That was a really fun time. It felt like it was decently competitive. It felt like there was, but also like, I don't know, we were all, I'd say, on really good, decent terms. Like, I could hang out with all of them outside of the game, and that was really fun. And I played a lot of practice with all of them. And then junior year itself was also super fun. I would probably say fourth year if I had been there for more than one quarter, but I only really participated for the last quarter of fourth year. So it's hard for me to say that. So I'd say the best they ever were first year. My favorite time, or what I would consider the golden age, is I would definitely say like third year.
Like 16, 17. 2016, 2017, yeah. Okay. I think Yeah, I think a lot of people tended to value more the like the community sort of culture and like the local culture over the like skill, because a lot of people
Mhm.
kind of commented like, oh, there's two ways to answer that, you know, like the time that I liked the culture of the community the most and stuff, or like the time where I thought that like it was the best while I was there. And pretty much everyone agrees that like yeah, like over time like the region got like weaker, but it also became more friendly.
I would
Which
definitely agree. I would want to point out though that the one quarter I was there first year probably even still had the best culture. Like
mhm,
everyone was super buddy buddy. Like I feel like there was some competition, but it just felt very supportive. Like people were supportive of each other and
mhm,
really wanted to see us all do well. So it was like I think first year was the most healthy balance where like
mhm.
whenever I went to like two events, I think where other the whole squad went out and it was all super supportive and everyone was excited to see how everyone else was doing. And it was kind of back in the ancient days of Melee too, where like randomly you
The
just have
ancient days
total.
in
Yeah.
2013.
No, seriously though, like it was 2014, you'd have just like squads rolling up who didn't know each other, and you just see how people did against each other, and you just wanted to see like
Mhm.
your friends do well, right? It was way, but it was like right before the big, shift, which I would say was in 2015, when
Apex and stuff as well. A
yeah,
lot of people
2015
came in.
like my second year, I remember the first event I hosted. We were able to get 64 people out there for a 64-person tournament in Harold Frank, which was such a tiny space to be hosting that many people.
Hmm.
And I
It
remember
was.
thinking like, wow, this is when the game has become huge, right? And that was right after all those people left. And I'd say like that was the last era where it felt like things were still like small, like it was still like very much like you didn't know what was going to happen when Cool Kid went down to a SoCal event, he could get top three. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't be surprised. Whereas like at a certain point, it became like everybody knows what everyone else's skill is, and they're all like
Yeah.
expecting things from each other.
Names start getting tracked more. There's like more streams, more discussion on
Mhm.
like Facebook groups, Discord servers, and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. That kind of yeah, because I remember when I was getting into the game, because I was getting into the game like during you know the dark age, quote unquote, right? And
Yeah.
like I remember at the time like um there was a lot of hostility and toxicity towards Brawl. Um, there really was. Like I could even tell back then when I was like very like on the fringe of like the community. But you could tell that like when you were like, oh, I want to get into Melee, like everybody was like on their knees, like ready to like accept you into the community. Um, and I think that that tends to happen when a game is sort of uh, not organically trending upwards,
Hmm.
because like there needs to be that active, like there needs to be that community effort, like that extra oomph to like get people to not only come in but to stay in. But when like tournaments are big, you know, the game's getting big views on like Twitch or whatever, and like people are just gonna show up to their locals, and like it's you know it's simple. Like you just go on now. It's like you go onto like subreddits, Facebook pages are like less popular I think now, and like Discord servers are kind of replacing what Facebook groups were. Um,
Hmm.
you can sort of see that a lot of people are coming in with like you know regardless of what the community is like, and I think that makes people more apathetic to that, and you kind of see as more people kind of just come in like it starts to feel a little bit more sterile in that way. And that's true of all levels too, like because Melee can be in a good spot, like you know, growing organically, like by you know numerically speaking. But maybe some local is kind of like some region is like seeing dwindling entry, and their culture will probably be different than like the broad Melee culture
Hmm.
as a whole. Um, but beyond that, how would you say, I guess, you kind of have touched on this, but I kind of want to ask more directly. Um, what would you say, like, your role in the community is or was like at the time, like, you know, throughout playing? Like, how would you sort of describe yourself and like, how would you place yourself in the community?
Um, it's a hard question to answer. I definitely wasn't doing the most work in terms of like I wasn't like Caleb or Jake or Brian in
Hmm.
terms of like how much like actual heavy lifting I did. I think I played a huge role in the social aspect of getting a lot of people, a lot of newer players into the scene. I think that was a big part, and then I also played a huge part in getting out of state people or out of region people to come
Yeah.
to our events as well.
Hmm.
So that, but also like yeah, I drove to a lot of tournaments. So in junior year, if anyone wanted to go out of region, I would take them. Right, I drove a ton, like over like 10,000 miles in the span of like 6 months, just going to and from SoCal events. Right,
Mm-hmm.
so I'd say my role was very much like a social role of like bringing people into the scene and then also getting people to come to our tournaments as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. Would you say that you had a particular like preference? Like, was there a role that you would say you enjoyed the most or the least? Like, did some of them feel more like fulfilling or enjoyable?
Hmm. Probably what I did. I mean, I did some TO work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't put that on my list of things because I didn't. I don't think I did as much TO work as like Jake or like Jake or Alan um, or Caleb, right? But I did still do some TO work. It
Mm-hmm.
was like decently rewarding. I don't know. I wasn't as rewarded by that. I think my favorite thing was when I could get good players to come out to our events, and like I felt very rewarded when like people who I saw a lot, like I got to say hi to, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're like even just like random people who came to every event, even though they would go out to, like it was really rewarding to see them and say hi and ask them how they were doing and see them around campus and smile and be friendly.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I enjoyed the most.
Okay. So I guess that kind of also begs an interesting question that I haven't really, I don't think, directly brought up to anyone yet. But how would you say over time, uh, how would you describe the sort of conflict of like balancing life and melee? Like,
Hmm. I think I didn't have a balance of anything in college. I think I slept like 3 to 6 hours a night. I worked a bunch. I did a lot of school. I played a lot of video games. I don't. Junior year, I entered 100 tournaments in Melee. Or the
the
year
calendar
of 20,
year, yeah, the calendar year of
yeah,
2016.
2016. Yeah, I
I
entered
think it was
100.
2016. It might have been
Yeah,
2017.
no, it was 2016.
Okay, okay.
I can double check though. Yeah, I'm pretty sure 2016 I entered 100 tournaments in 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was my life balance there. I spent thousands and thousands of hours playing Melee that year,
Mm-hmm.
and I did that. And basically, if I wasn't in school or sleeping, I was doing that
Mm-hmm.
pretty much all the time.
All right. Would you say that uh in terms of like I guess well like was balancing those things ever something that felt like it was difficult, or did it just feel like life was
No.
difficult and like all these things were also, were components of that difficulty?
I didn't think anything was really difficult. I just
Okay.
kind of did it. I didn't even think about it.
Okay.
It was like I was going from moment to moment doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very spur of the moment kind of person, and I go with the wind a lot of the time, right? I'm not one to plan a lot, and so I would just say like, "Oh, there's this event on Thursday. Yeah, I'm going," and then it was like I would go. I
Yeah.
wouldn't like think about the implications of
Okay.
going. If I had schoolwork to do, I would just do it when I got back, or I would do it like when I found time for it.
Mm-hmm.
I was very much going from event to event to event to event to event in college
Mm-hmm.
without even like thinking about it.
Okay. So I guess throughout those 4 years, like, can you pinpoint any? It doesn't have to be super specific. You can like, and you don't have to pick a single one, but like, some of like your biggest struggles and successes that you encountered, related to melee.
Biggest struggles and biggest successes. Biggest struggles. I think it was very hard for me to overcome. Maybe it feels bad to say, but like there's a lot of conflict between myself and some of the SoCal Melee members, and so I'd say that there was some struggle around that. I tried to fix some relationships. I think I just came off really a lot more cocky than I intended to. I have a lot of confidence in myself as a person, and a lot of people take that confidence as arrogance. And so those relationships
Mm-hmm.
were definitely they caused some problems, and it was usually out of region. I felt like my relationship with most of the people in region was pretty positive, especially after 2016. Like in
Mm-hmm.
2017 and 2018, junior and senior year, I think most of my relationships were pretty positive. But there was definitely a time where like,
Oh, all right, guys, we're doing the proverbial Discord freeze. It's gonna crash, and we're gonna be back really soon. Nice panic basket.
oh,
All right, the Discord freeze
yeah, the
happened.
Discord crash.
Yep, it did the thing. Streamer did the funny.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, basically, most of my conflict when it came to Smash was in interpersonal relationships with people where I wanted to get good, and I would be, very vocal about how good I thought I was, or how good I thought other people were, and stuff like that, and trying to remedy those. And I think over time, almost all of those relationships were fixed, or
Hmm.
they became non-existent because this player stopped playing. There's a lot of struggle there. As far as successes, I don't really. It's kind of sad. I don't feel like I ever got a specific success that I was looking for in Melee, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think I just came away from it positively. Like, I think my overall Melee experience was very positive. There wasn't really one success, though. I really enjoyed a lot of the time that I spent playing the game. There are specific moments that I really enjoyed, a lot of friends I made. And I mean, if I had to pick a moment, definitely beating Umarth in a 15 game set was pretty hype. Probably one of my favorite moments. But outside of whooping Umarth, yeah, my top moment is there isn't really one spot. It's a bunch of different things, and it's just the experience overall was very positive from everything.
Okay, I mean that's good to hear. I'm glad that was the case. Um, so regarding like sort of like play like as a player, like your gameplay and stuff, like would you say that over time, did you feel like your improvement was more like consistent and linear, or did you feel like it was more like inconsistent, maybe with like bigger spikes and dips, or like spikes, plateau, spike, that kind of stuff?
Spikes and dips, probably.
Hmm.
I had a huge spike in skill in after my first year, the summer between my first year and my second year, and then I had another huge spike in skill within my second year,
Hmm.
and then I feel like I remained around. I think I was kind of gate kept by my own speed in
Hmm.
the game and my ability to improve. I think if I could have sped myself up, I actually could have improved a lot more and gotten a lot more done. But after that point, I definitely feel like at one point I like hit a wall of like huge improvements, and it just became incremental.
Okay.
And that was
What
probably around third year.
So what would you say led to some of those like breaking like those breakthroughs for you? Like was it just a matter of like was it just a matter of like circumstance or something, like maybe something mental clicking, or was it like something you did, maybe like a certain practice routine, or like a certain like you maybe just attend a lot of tournaments?
Honestly, I just played against people who were better than me a lot, and over time, I started being able to beat them. I like learned what they were doing, and then once I was able to beat certain players, I was able to apply it to what other players were doing too.
Mm-hmm.
A huge one was I played against Jeff Burnsy over the summer, like almost like weekly, probably more than weekly, like a few times a week. And it was like he would whoop me, and we'd always put best of fives at the end of our sessions, right? And then slowly over time, I started being able to take best of fives off him. I'm like, dude, this guy's like within the like was from last year one of the top 8 players that year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if I can take best of fives off this guy, I can be a top 10 player for sure. um, so it was really just finding like I said before, like rivals, and like being able to come up to their skill and have them teach me things, and me improve against them, and really just think about how I can beat specific players. And then eventually I was able to beat a lot more players when I was able to play them as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, That's pretty interesting. I think that like a lot of people, I think there's a decent amount of discussion about like playing to beat players versus like playing to be like just improve at the game. Like they're not mutually exclusive. Like it's just
Yeah.
a lot of times when people approach that, it's like, oh, I'm gonna pick up this character for this person in my region that like in a matchup they struggle against specifically. But it's like you're not really improving at the game. You're just kind of like laterally improving to
Yeah.
like branch
Well,
out
I
to be
never
able to
did
beat this
that.
one
I
person.
just played Fox.
Yeah, yeah, of
I,
course. Like I said, it's not mutually exclusive, but like it's interesting that you bring that up because I think that when people talk about like beating specific players, like the dialogue and the discourse is really focused around like saying like don't focus to beat certain people, but it's like if the things that you do to beat them are more broadly applicable to the game, then there's nothing wrong with that. It's just when you're doing something that's like not actually making you better, but is rather just trying to prey more on their weaknesses, like that's when I think people tend to
think it
be
depends
upset
how
about
strong
that.
the
But
people you're playing against is, right?
that's
Like
also
when
true.
I
Like if
don't
they're
feel like,
similar skill, but like
yeah, like Jeff was a good amount better than me. So being
right,
able to get to the point where I could beat
you
him
had to
was
improve.
like, I had to improve a lot to
Right,
be able to
right.
get to that point. And
Hmm.
I had to improve at a lot of different things. Same with Tommy, right? Like Tommy's a really good player. Like, I don't think he has any super big holes outside of like, I think I've heard before like his combo game could be stronger, right? Like that's the biggest thing I ever heard. But everyone I talked to, even outside of the scene, would always say that like he was really good, right? So being able to get to the point where I beat him, I had to improve at a lot of things. I think like thinking about the holistic approach of trying to just improve at everything is like nice and all, but I think it's kind of it's hard to actually do. Like it's so much harder to actually do than to just think like, how can I beat this person who's beating me? If you think, how can I beat this person that's beating me, you'll improve at the game so much. Like, I don't know if I agree with that position. As long as you're not thinking like, oh, they suck against Sheik, I'll just pick up Sheik against them.
Yeah. I mean, that's usually the direction that discourse goes. Like, I think a lot of the times, like, oh, like what's their biggest hole, and how can I expose that with like the least amount of effort, kind of thing.
For myself, I improved a lot more just thinking how, because if you are smart enough to be able to think how the things you're doing against certain people are beating them, right? Like if I think like, okay, Jeff plays this certain way, and I'm beating him now because I can expose this or that. You can do that against tons of other players.
Definitely,
and like
I agree.
you can, you're after as long as you're like improving and like beating a bunch of different people of different like skill types, like eventually your skill set does broaden out enough to be able to just have improved a lot.
I agree. Yeah, because like I also agree with you that like it's like kind of a bad faith argument to say that like one is more effective than the other. I think especially, yeah, I also agree with like trying to improve at the game as a whole is like, it sounds really nice and pretty, like you can wrap it up in a nice box and be like, here, improve at the whole game, but like that's a lot. Like there's a lot to improve at. Like if you want to try to like raise your floor like evenly, and you're not gonna, and like stuff like that, like you're not gonna be willing to like do kind of this guy, right? Then progress is going to be like really, it's going to feel, I think, really slow. And I think a lot of people underestimate how, I guess actually, I'm not sure that that's true, but I think that some people underestimate how important it is to have like more tangible benchmarks of your progress. Like,
and rivals. I mean, think about how Mango got good, right? Him and Lucky just went at it, and they were able to become like really, really good players, like just playing against each other, like legitimately. Like, I'm kind of surprised that some people would think that that's a bad way to improve at the game. I think it's a great way to improve at the game. Having a rival, I think so is a really, really good way to improve.
I think something that motivates you to approach the game like more, I guess, like honestly and straightforwardly is a good thing. Like you can't really blanket say this is good or this is bad, because a thinking person with a controller in their hands will approach the game different. Like they all approach the game differently. Like you can't really just say that this is good or this is bad. I mean, I guess broadly you can say like, this is good or this is bad, but like the things that you can say broadly don't tend to be as useful either. So in terms of I guess how would I describe it? Like in terms of like for you, like when it comes to playing the game, how much of it for you was like I guess like how much of it was about like improving, quote unquote, versus like the pure raw enjoyment of like playing the game. I think you know what I'm getting at, even though like I'm not wording it the best.
I think improvement is the thing I enjoyed the most about playing Melee. The game itself is also really fun, but it just was like the most fun avenue for seeing improvement of myself. That's how I describe it.
Okay. Would you say that on like a sort of just raw like just level of like engaging with like the game, playing it, you would say you also just like really enjoy that, but it's not, that's something that holds you, that's just like a nice thing that also happens to be a part of it?
It's like if I wanted to improve at something, I'd want to improve at the thing that I found the most fun, right?
Okay.
I think Melee was so fun that improving at it it's like, this is a thing that not only can I really enjoy improving at, but it's just fun to do, And so those two, the combination of things made it super easy.
Okay, that makes sense. Would you say then that when you what would you say like are some of like maybe your favorite like not exactly memories, but like I guess like what's like your comfort Melee for you? Is it like playing someone like similar skill level, like really, or is it kind of like what you said earlier about just like being able to chat with someone that you can like have good games with, or is it like kind of depends on the day? Depends on the day and mood.
For me, comfort Melee is probably just playing with somebody similar skill level and being able to like chat with them and just like have a good time doing fun combos and laughing while you do stupid things or Randall does something stupid, right? That's
Mhm.
probably comfort melee for me. I enjoy that a lot.
Okay. I think that that's pretty. That's. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's hard to. I think like both of them have their limits. Like there's certain levels, like personality. I think like nobody likes playing with like super ragey people. I think everyone finds that at least a little uncomfortable. Um, but then like also I think that most people have like a cap for like how much how much they're willing to get beat up and how much they're willing to beat like how long they're willing to like beat someone else up. Like when it's like if you're always four stalking someone, I think it gets really old really fast. And if you're always getting four stalked, that can also get old really fast.
I don't think either of those I super hate.
Hmm.
Although I will say that getting four stocked every game is, I've probably hit a skill level to where there are very few people who could four stock me every single game I played against them, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Or like
but
obviously like four stocks, just like you just feel helpless against them essentially.
yeah, there are some
Yeah.
players I would definitely feel helpless against. Don't get me wrong, but like I don't know. I think I've always enjoyed playing against people, even if I'm four stocking them every game or vice versa. I always worry that they're not having fun
Hmm.
because you can
Oh yeah, I
still have
get
a
that
lot of
too.
fun. I don't know. I feel like you can always have a lot of fun four stocking people. Like
Hmm.
I don't know. You're always doing good combos. Like you're really. It feels like good practice for like when you're in a good flow state, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I would agree. So. Since we're getting towards the hour mark, I'm going to ask viewers if you guys have any questions, start dropping them in chat now, and I will get back to them as soon as I finish asking like one or two like final questions. So yeah, if you guys have those, just drop them in there. I'll make sure to read them off before the end, before I close it off. But I guess one of my last questions, potentially my last one for you, is in terms of like practicing and stuff. Like, what was your approach to like practicing the game if you had one? Like maybe like a routine or just like when it's like I want to improve. Like, how did you think about it or like and do it?
I had a
Generally.
regimen for improving when it
Hmm.
came to like tech skill. It was pretty straightforward. It was just practicing stuff like, doing aerials and plays and that kind of stuff. Like that was probably how I mostly practiced tech skill. Like there's like I had a huge list, like a 45-minute chart of things to do. When it came to improving at other things, I think the best way to improve at things, and I think this is true for everything outside of melee, is to really, really focus in and hone on one thing that you want to improve and just like overthink about it the entire time you're in one session, right? So like let's say I wanted to improve at like following up my combos with Falco with like there's a new tech that I saw Mango doing for a while where he would like falling up air out of his combos onto platforms. Let's say you wanted to start doing that, and it's like, how can I teach my brain to do that? You go, literally all I think about the entire game is do it. Like that's the one thing I'm thinking about. And like you post-it note somewhere or put a note somewhere and you're like, I want to do this one thing. Like in League, whenever I was trying to improve at League, I would think like, okay, I want to pink ward more, right? Like I would constantly be telling myself like pink ward, pink ward, pink ward, pink ward. And everything else would get a lot worse, right? Like I'd CS a lot worse in League when I was just thinking about putting a pink ward down. Or like
Hmm.
I might even in the, autopiloting and putting pink wards down and put bad pink wards down and get ganked a lot more. Like there are a lot of things that it would get a lot worse. Same in melee, and it's really hard for people to overcome that in melee because somebody who you're playing against might go like, "Oh, I'm beating you a lot. Like, I've improved so much. I've gotten so much better." And you're thinking like, "Well, I'm trying to improve at this one thing, and it's really been a detriment to my actual gameplay in these friendlies, right?" And
Hmm.
I think that's why Mango was able to get so good was he didn't give a shit if he was losing friendlies or not, right? And
Hmm.
it's hard to get past that, but whenever I wanted to improve at something, I would just think the one thing I want to improve at, and that's all I would focus on for like an entire session. And then by the end of the session, I usually can have naturalized it into just doing it naturally, right? And it becomes
Hmm.
intuitive.
Yeah.
And it's not just a melee thing. I think you can do that in literally anything you want to improve at. Is you just force yourself. It's hard because you'll get a lot worse at other things, but it's like spring cleaning, right? When you clean your whole place, like at one point it's dirtier than it was when you started, but
Hmm.
then by the end it's cleaner.
Hmm. Yeah, because you
It's
have
the
to
same
take
thing with
everything out
money.
of the cabinets and like you're getting sort of deep and dirty with like all the like shelves, closets, all that shit, and then eventually like, you put it all back, yeah, and then like you just need to lay it all out first, or like you kind of need to look at it all before you kind of are able to figure out where it all goes.
Yeah.
Um, so this is something I asked Calvin, and I'm kind of curious now since you mentioned that. How would you say for you, or just in general, you feel about improving by improving additively by like sort of incorporating, I guess, they're not mutually exclusive because you can replace you can like get rid of bad habits by sort of forming new good habits, but like I think it kind of still makes sense as like a pseudo dichotomy of sorts, is like incorporating new things into your gameplay versus like subtract like yeah, adding new good things versus like subtracting current/old bad things. Like did you have a mentality of like that leaned more towards one or the other, or not really?
Definitely leans more towards adding new good things to
Hmm.
subtracting bad old things, I'd say.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think a lot of bad habits are only bad habits because you do them a ton. And when you incorporate new things, you naturally aren't doing the bad things as much. Like rolling from the ledge, right? That's a very classic, like, bad habit. If you are working on your ledge options and you just incorporate other corner options, all of a sudden rolling from the ledge isn't that bad.
Hmm.
Like if you start full hopping out of corner, if you start dash dancing out of corner, you start ledge dashing out of corner, like all of a sudden rolling isn't bad. And I think most things that people do that are bad aren't actually that bad if they would just mix it up more.
Hmm.
And adding new things is mixing it up more. If you only have one option in a certain given situation every time, then it's gonna be shit. You're gonna like get
Yeah,
absolutely punished for it.
better
But if you're
players
just
will pick
adding,
on you
yeah,
for it.
yeah, and the answer isn't stop rolling in the ledge. I mean, it can be for some players because then you think, okay, what else can I even do? And then, but that's just adding, right? From my perspective, I'm just like, what else can I do in this situation aside
Hmm.
from like stopping doing what I'm already doing?
Yeah. Dude, that makes me remember in the 20XX build that I think it was like, I think it might still be in like, I mean, 20XX is like kind of outdated for versus like Uncle Punch, like Slippy, all that kind of like all the Zoomer practice tools.
Yeah,
But like, the slightly before the millennial practice tools, I guess, of like the Achilles 20XX hack pack and stuff. Like, I'm not sure if you remember, but there was an option where you lose a stock on roll, which I think is so funny because, like, there's like the meme, which is also kind of justified, that like new players roll a lot. Like, that's like one of their only out of shield options. Um, but I always thought that the inclusion of that kind of like signaled that rolling was like inherently bad, and I was just like, this is such a weird like I get why, I kind of got why it
yeah.
existed, but the fact that it existed at all, I felt conveyed such like a weird message.
It's really dumb. I remember even back in like 2016, 2017, top players would always say like,
Don't
"Oh,
roll.
stop rolling! Like, don't roll." I'm like, it's the worst advice ever. Rolling is one of the most broken options in the entire game. Like, what other option, if you succeed, can you just go from a disadvantage state to an advantage state? Like,
Hmm.
rolling is really, really good. You just need to know how to do it. And like the thing is, you can't react to which way people are rolling. You can roll two different ways, right? Every single time you can roll at different timings. And if people don't predict the exact timing with which you roll, they'll get it wrong. And then you can just let go of shield and then run forward. Like there's so many things you're gonna roll in, and instead you just keep holding shield and they predict the roll in and they go for like an up smash or they go for a dash dance grab or something. Like you can just take space, right? If they start dash dancing out of it, you can just jump out of your shield, then you
Hmm.
can wave land on a platform. Like
Yeah.
rolling is so broken. The anti-rolling rhetoric was so stupid. It was
Yeah.
around for so long, but rolling from a corner, if it succeeds, is one of the most broken options in the entire game.
Yeah, dude.
You're literally like, oh, hey, now you're in the corner and I'm at center stage.
Hmm. Yeah, dude. Feels good, man.
Yeah, it feels really good.
But I mean, I guess that's why people like, why new players like to do it so much, is because it feels so good.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Dude, that's like another thing that I think is so crazy, is just how much like things have changed over time. Like, I'm not sure if you've kept up with like, you probably haven't, but like some of like the Fox Marth like discourse nowadays. Like IBDW made a 15-minute video on why he is of the belief that playing Fox currently, um, is not viable. Like playing solo Fox, he thinks, is not viable to be the best in the world, because he thinks that Zane is impossible to beat consistently in that situation. Because he talked about how like when he shines Zane from like the center of battlefield, like Zane's like SDI has gotten so consistent that like he can get to the ledge from like a center stage shine. And like he's
Wow.
like, yeah, like, and then if I try to predict that and he goes behind me, then I get grabbed. If I don't go far enough, I get grabbed. And he's like, then I go to up throw up air, and then he's really good at SDIing and reversaling out of it. Like he can get under me and up air me. He can go to the side and forward air me, and then I just die. And he's like, so now to get shot, and then I go for drill, and then he SDIs out of drill, and he grabs me. And he's just like, so he's like, yeah. So now it's people are like, oh, back in like 2015, people are like, oh yeah, just drill, shine, wave dash, grab, up throw, up air. That's Fox against Marth, you just do that, right? And now he's like, okay, the drill, Zane can grab me out of that. The shine, Zane can grab me out of that. The up air, he can reversal me out of that. He's like, so, one of your bread and butter things, he's like, yeah, I just feel like I can't. And then, there's a bunch of other reasons, but, I thought the fact that he was like, yeah, drill, shine, and up throw, up air he's like, none of them are reliable against Zane anymore. And I'm like,
I've been saying this since 2016, Andrew. I've been saying Marth's the best character since 2016. That's all I'm gonna say. I remember I would say those same things and people would meme me to death. They'd be like, "You're playing Fox, shut the fuck up," and I would just be like, "All I'm saying is a good player can SDI out of every single up throw, up air, out of every single drill." I didn't know the shine thing. That's crazy. But if you can SDI out of my up throw, up airs, my reliable kill options are so it's just up smash, right? And up smash is a really good move. Don't get me wrong.
But you whip it and you're just like. Dun, 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 dun.
I think that the big thing in that matchup is that people need to nair more. Nair is so good. I don't even know though, because you can crouch cancel.
It's it's a very it's a very developed.
If you're crouch canceling, then you can't SDI the drill, right? So I think Fox loses that matchup for sure. I thought that since 2016, 2017, and I would get memed to death. But
oh, dude, I mean, you should. Yeah, I remember the fucking bullshit that I endured when I was like, yeah. I remember first year, 2014. I was like, I remember I let the words come out. I was like, yeah, I feel like when I'm playing Marth, that's when I feel like I'm playing the best character in the game. People are like no. Jeff has the heretical opinion that Marth is seventh best.
No, that was Caleb. Caleb said Marth was 7th in the game.
Caleb said Marth is
Phil said that Marth is 7th in the game at one point.
Who did?
Do you feels with it, Phil?
Oh, I think I recall one of his heroes with that. Yeah.
Yeah, he had Marth at 7th at one point. I remember it was that Jeff was like, "This is so true," and. The Marth propaganda is crazy. It's rough, man. Yeah, I don't know. I think Marth's a really good character, but that's why I play Falcon now, because I feel like Falco Marth is actually a super close matchup, right? Yeah. I feel like Falco Marth is what Fox Marth used to be, because Falco has so many options and tools in that matchup, and can literally zero to death Marth from almost any point in the stage.
You just need to play really. Yeah, you just need to have crazy good reads and pick the right options. But yeah, I agree that Falco Marth, because I don't really play Fox at all, and I've been really good at playing Falco when I'm playing the game, and playing Falco Marth, you got a lot of stuff you can do. It's actually really crazy.
The thing is, it's not even a triangle. I feel like people have said before there's a triangle, right? Fox beats Sheik, who beats Marth, who beats Fox. But I don't even know if I think that's true. I think Marth might beat Sheik, and it might be even. Marth just loses to Pikachu. That's about it. And then outside of that, Marth just wins everything. I don't know. Marth's a crazy good character. I thought he was good for so long. I just never understood him. Okay, so you have this character who has the biggest hitboxes or biggest hitboxes in the game, completely disjointed from his hurtboxes. This is one of the fastest characters in the game, and has kill setups against half a cast. How is this not the best character in the game?
Probably the best. Probably universally the best edge guarding in the game.
Yep, people would always they'd always talk about how broken Fox was, how fast he was, and dude, Fox's hurtboxes are right next to his hitboxes, right? Anytime you want to do damage, you have to put yourself in vulnerable state.
And it's hard.
It is hard. Yeah, I've always thought that. I mean, Fox is still an amazing character. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
Fox is incredibly strong, but you're definitely not as broken as has been the rhetoric since 2016.
Yeah,
it's just easy to complain about things.
Fox propaganda.
It's just easy to complain about things. It's easy to complain about Fox. Yeah, it's easy for people to just scapegoat their problems away to they're playing a broken character. And I mean, Fox fans are doing the same thing about Marth now, but I think Fox fans just feel this strong upsetness that they've been lied to for this long amount of time. You know what I mean? They've just been lied to, and they're told that their character is so broken that they cannot complain about anything. They just want to, you know what? Finally, I can complain about something. Fuck Marth. Shit is so stupid. They just want to get it out there, and I respect it completely. I think that they are totally valid. I think that Zane totally strawmanned this argument on Twitter. He said something about how Marth mains aren't allowed to be happy about their wins now. That's such a straw man. Nobody's saying that you're not allowed to be happy for your wins. We're just saying that Marth is really good against Fox. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I felt strawmanned when I saw that tweet. I felt like Zane was just arguing a point that nobody is making.
Hard to say. I mean, I think that I tend to be very far away from Smash randoms on Smash Twitter. They're very scary to me. Randoms in like video game communities on like Twitter and like Reddit and stuff they're scary. You know, they sound so confident no matter what they're
Yeah.
saying. It's very
Dude, you're never
frightening.
sure. You could respond to them and you could be like, you're wrong. And they're like, actually, I was a top 30 Fox player. Like, I'm a current top 30 Fox player. And you're like, oh, crap. Well, I just responded to a
Yeah.
top 30 Fox player. My
Yeah, they're
bad.
like, I'm second in like, Finland, and I'm like,
Yeah, and they're like, oh, dang, my
all
bad. Or
right,
they could
like,
just be like, I'm random Scrub McGee from Ohio. And you're like,
it's like
oh,
I've been
man, I
playing. I'll have you know, I've
totally.
been playing for 5 months.
And you're like, random Scrub McGee, I can definitely contest your point that Fox is the most broken character in the game. And it's crazy because the propaganda still exists so strongly outside of Smash. Like, nowadays,
Yeah, it
I feel
does.
like it's pretty balanced. Like, people understand that Fox has weaknesses and that, might lose to Marth. And people on random gaming subreddit just go Fox 20XX Fox Final Destination, no items is the future. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And then there's propaganda that Puff is bad because Hungrybox isn't winning anymore. And I'm like, that's also not true. Puff is still a stupidly good character.
Yeah.
Probably the best character in the game if people actually were willing to just be completely degenerate with her.
And like, use all of her
Ledge Jam,
options.
use all of
A
her
composite
terrible
Puff.
options. Yeah, Puff could absolutely be one of the, if not the best character in the game if they played that way. And dude, I remember in 2017 at Shine, I lost to this Puff who I beat in a money match in 2016. It was after this is another sad situation because I almost beat Swedish Delight in that tournament, right? And that would have been crazy upset. And I lost this Puff. And he just reacted to every tech I did with rest. And I was like, if a Puff could consistently do this, Fox would lose this matchup, I think. Like, straight up, like, if a Puff could literally rest me off of any grab, it's over, dude. Like, and I remember playing against him and feeling so lost because every time I got up thrown onto a platform, he would just react to whichever way I rolled and rest. And I was like, damn, this is the future, right? Like, people are getting so good at these sorts of things. And Fox is not able to keep up with it. Because at the end of the day, Fox is being optimized more than any other character because of how much is being played.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that too. Mango actually just the other day said that he thinks Puff is a bad character. He thinks that Marth Puff is 7-3 Marth.
That's an interesting take.
He said that he said if Zane's playing well, I think HBox needs to be playing twice as well.
I don't know. Puff could be bad. I don't think so, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? So many people have very confidently declared things about this unchanging game for so many years, and just so many of them have looked like morons in hindsight. I remember I brought up the chillin' dude comment on wave dashing.
Yeah.
It's like wave dashing. It's like wave dashing seems useless. I think it's actually kind of dumb. His Squirtle profile picture.
I mean, wave dashing is super good, but I actually think he's not wrong in saying it's like overrated. Dash dancing is so good. If you're really good at dash dancing, unless you're Luigi, can replace pretty much a lot of wave dashing. Luigi or ice climbers.
Wave dashing isn't that appealing. It seems kind of stupid. Chillin' dude 829. Classic post.
That's a classic. That's a banger right there.
Yeah, that is a banger.
Gamer moment for sure.
Another dude. Here, this is how I'll kind of transition onto the end out because we don't have any like burning viewer questions. So, but
yikes! No one wants to ask me anything. Yeah. You can know anything you want about me. It doesn't even need to be Smash related.
No, you just ask whatever. But I know that there's a guy and his name was just Fast Fox, and that was his name on Smashboards. Okay, and they were talking about and there was a thread about using the cloud on Yoshi's story. Right? And then he was like the third reply in the thread. He just goes, from this day forth, this cloud will be known as Randall. And it stuck. Can you believe it? This is in like 2004. I think
crazy.
Something like that. And it's just that's just the cloud. It's just Randall. Like in the thread, like the next like 5 replies are like Randall. I like that.
It feels accurate. It's funny because it's probably based on random, but even though it's not random, it's still stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows? I never even thought of that. I mean, yeah, one of the few totally predictable stage elements. But I guess that kind of concludes everything that I wanted to go through. Hopefully you had a good time. I had a great time having you here and like chatting about this.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
it was fun.
Yeah. Everyone in chat, thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate you guys just hanging out in here. It's fun to like read the ticker. And I hope that you guys had a good time with this one. The next one is going to be in just about 40 minutes, actually. We're going to have Johnny on, Jmu, resident CRT mover. And we're going to, and then I'll post the Calvin episode as soon as I'll add that to the playlist rather, as soon as this one concludes, and then as soon as the Johnny episode concludes, I'll add this one. So hopefully, yeah, if you guys want to tune in for that, that'd be cool. If you guys don't, that's also fine. But I just have a good time doing this. I feel like it's coming along nicely. This thing that I don't really have a supreme vision for. Oh yeah, you can still ask a question. You can go for that. But I guess that'll be the last one because I kind of already did my whole wrap-up spiel. But yeah, go for it. Ask your shoot away. I'm not sure what the stream delay is, so it might be like a little bit before he hears me say that. We'll see though. I know that like at one point I was looking at it and I was like, wow, am I that delayed? Okay, so here's the question. It's how did grinding Melee with your goals for that game translate to trying to grind and improve League, with one being a team game and the other being 1v1?
I think you can improve so much solo in League. There's a lot. The thing is, there's a lot more moving parts in League that like nobody actually does. That improving at the game, if you just focus on specific little things, can actually like gain you so much in a way that it can't in Melee. Because like in Melee, a lot of the improvement things feel more nebulous, but like you can actively see when you improve at placing pink wards in League how many ganks you're like driving, like you're getting rid of, like your deaths that you're preventing, right, and vision you're giving to your teammates, right? Like you can see those things in real time, and you can see that the people who you're playing with in like, and for my sake, like Platinum Elo, don't do that, and you're like, wow, this one really important thing that nobody else is doing, like at my Elo, will help me improve so much, right? I will gain so much from this. And there's so many non-nebulous things in League that because nobody improves at them, like nobody thinks to do it the way that they do it in Melee, because in Melee it's so obvious to do it that way, right? You can actually gain so much from it because if you've been playing a lot of a team game, you've already intuitively improved at so many aspects of the actual team play that improving your solo play can actually get you so much. So that'd be my plan. And I actually think that like because nobody else is doing it, and there's so many little things that you can improve at that nobody's doing, you can actually see even bigger results than you can from than from the other.
Okay.
So,
and then El Zonto Sam just has a quick question where it's what's the best mission burritos in the city?
In SF or in the peninsula? I'll answer both. In SF, that's hard. I haven't had too many burritos in SF. I liked the Mission City burritos that were like the founding of Mission City burritos. Those are pretty tasty. There's this one place that Devin took me to by where he lived. I forget what it was called though. And then here I really like a place called El Mague. It's in San Mateo. Super good. The one thing that people always mess up in burritos, they always get the tortillas wrong. The tortilla is the most important part of the burrito. You got to use a lot of lard. It's got to be really soft, but in like tacky. It's got to have a nice chew. It can't be like crispy. People always get these crispy ass tortillas. Nah, I don't want any crispy tortillas, right? Like that's my biggest pet peeve in burritos is when they like crisp up the tortillas super hard. It's like unless you got cheese right next to that tortilla, like I don't want it crispy, right? I want it chewy. It's the best texture, right? It's like anyway, so best in the peninsula I'd say is El Mague. Best up in San Francisco, I haven't had too many. I like the Mission Street burritos. It's like the founding of the Mission style burrito. That place was good, and I really like this one place that Devin. I can ask him if you want a recommendation.
All right. Well, I'm glad that we managed to wrap up on something that literally wraps up. So
For sure.
I appreciate the last second questions, and yeah, thanks again for showing up and appearing on it. And then
Totally.
I'll see you guys hopefully, at least a couple for Johnny in 40-ish minutes.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep.
That was a lot of fun.
Thanks. Yeah, you too. I really appreciate it. All right.
Yep. All right. Bye.
Peace out. All right.